The world has gone stale, monotonous, and predictable. No desire to challenge the status quo. No reason to break this soul-sucking cycle of working, pay your taxes, and be a stand-up citizen. Everything must follow and be in order. It's sickening, draining, and needs to end. We need chaos. I need to run rampant and destroy everything. I need to kill for the sake of it. I need to bring carnage and destruction. And most of all, I need a good challenge. Alucard is an individual who more or less fits what I just said. And just like him, it describes perfectly what Hellsing is. Chaotic, malicious, unpredictable mayhem. Nothing can really prepare you for what will take place, yet you will probably be drawn into its gothic world like a moth to the flame. And if you're not careful, you might even get burned. Hellsing is an odd series since, in the best JoJo fashion, there's nothing really like it. That is both a good thing, but also inside some drawbacks. Because what happens when you take absolute chaotic drive with unlimited stamina and give it no limiting direction to make the path forward less predictable? Well, that's what I'll try to figure out while making sense of this Crimson Red manga. The day, or night really, has finally come for me to take a look at this gothic cult classic, Hellsing. Hello my name is Daidarius and welcome to my review of Hellsing. It was made by Kota Hirano and had its origin as a one-shot in a hentai magazine. Yes, hentai. Despite it having nothing to do with that genre, it was still popular enough to be given a full run, this time in a seinen magazine on a monthly schedule. It ran from April 30th, 1997 until September 30th, 2008 and was collected into 10 volumes. Dark Horse, who did the English publication, later made it into 3 deluxe editions, which this review is based on. These volumes tells the story chronologically in its 89 chapter run with no interruptions. It then ends with the 3 one-shot chapters of the Crossfire story. The bigger format highlights the art and uses thick white papers with pure black ink to get the most contrast possible. The title itself is a pun on Abraham Van Helsing's name, who is the known character from the story of Dracula. Originally, Hirano was getting a lot of comments from his one-shot that the vampire Alucard resembled Vash from Trigon with his coat and glasses. Luckily, by smacking a hat on him, the blip now made him a completely different character. Hirano wanted to focus on action and gunplay to diverge from his hentai work and also added the female character Seras to add a bit warmer and feminine feel to the story. This was also to make sure that the story wasn't being portrayed as a formulaic vampire tale. And holy shit, is this story anything but formulaic. Sir Integra Hellsing, who is a descendant of Van Helsing, is leading an order whose mission is to hunt and kill supernatural forces of evil, mainly vampires. To help with this, she utilizes her 2 most elite guardians. Alucard is a vampire sworn to follow Integra's orders, who exists for one thing: chaotic destruction. And the newest member, Alucard's apprentice Seras Victoria, a former police officer turned vampire. Together they mow down the evil wherever they find it, and occasionally have skirmishes with the Vatican Sector 13, who sees the Protestants of the Hellsing group as much as enemies as the vampires. The random encounters with occult monsters quickly starts to make a pattern, and an old enemy of Alucard starts to showing its ugly head. Now Integra needs to figure out this antagonistic group goal while keeping Alucard from running amok. And before anyone can get a good assessment of the situation, carnage and destruction starts to erupt everywhere, with Alucard laughing manically in the center. And soon after, the enemy starts to move. Now I can't say much more without starting to spoil the story. The thing is that after the first volume, the story becomes streamlined and quickly moves towards the finale. I'll touch upon it later, but essentially it was the purpose of getting to the action. Now that doesn't mean that action is the only thing that Hellsing has going for it. The story is good, but it just quickly becomes obvious that after the setup is done in the first volume, it then focusing on paying all of that off. So don't expect it to spend too much energy on the story. More often than not, it directs that energy towards the art. The art of Hellsing is both goofy and a tad eerie. Backgrounds and hard surfaces, such as weapons, looks fine. However, the characters look wobbly and amateurish, like Hirano wasn't confident in his line placement. Proportions are way off and faces are bordering caricatures. It's a stark contrast to the dark and gothic vibe the story is going for. Luckily, it doesn't take long for the art to improve, and it only gets better. The effective usage of shadows to insinuate form and sinister underlines of a character's psyche, and panel setup and blocking to hammer in a specific mood and atmosphere improve the experience overall. It commits to use action to emphasize horror, but still has a ton of fun with it and dares to experiment. The action is surprisingly fluent, and there's even a fantastic use of muzzle flashes in here. Like, the gun is so powerful it blasts the panel apart. You feel the force behind it, and this goes on until the end. Hirano commits to the genre and depicts it perfectly, making enemies seem intimidating when needed. Depicts the mythical creatures with the respect and sheer aura needed, and it lets you know by someone kneeling how downright powerful they are, which are just instruments to drive the carnage and insanity that the story thrives on. There's not much else to say about Daidarius, since in its basic form, it's simple. Not as in lacking detail or ambition, but in what it tries to do, which is gothic horror with chaotic fun mixed in. And fun is how I would describe looking at the artist like. Pure, unfiltered fun. I think this small scene sums it up best. Alucard crashes a freaking blackbird into an enemy ship just because it was the fastest way to get there. And then flames, blood, torn limbs and carnage ensues with all the great blocking, shadows, paneling and action that Hirano has come to master. Now, I've praised this manga a lot, which could make it seem like it's a masterpiece. However, it is not without its flaws. The positives are more related to the fact that the manga knows what it is, whereas the negatives comes from, among other things, a lack of vision and purpose. The characters are extremely lackluster and only have that design going for them. They are service level deep with shadow characterization, and it becomes evident quickly that they only exist to move the plot along. That leaves Alucard, Anderson and Integra, with occasionally Ceros, to provide any depths. Luckily, they do have more to offer, but everyone else more or less just exists to give information and then get turned into beef jerky. The main enemy's plan, who I'll keep a secret here, is extremely lackluster and is simply a justification for a chaotic finale drenched in blood and gore. It borders cartoony and doesn't provide any opposition to Hellsing and Gang's worldview. Besides, some might want to lower the loss of innocence. Mixing that together with a half-assed mystery regarding this plan, briefing introducing the opposing force, to then just speedrun it to get to the fun stuff, being the final confrontation, takes an interesting world with a unique premise and boils it down to mindless action with not much else to offer. And finally, the ending is abrupt and feels like Hirano was just done with it and wanted to move on. And considering what went down in that final fight, a lot of questions are left unanswered and it leaves our main characters without any resolution, which it was gearing up for. Hellsing takes any interesting ideas, themes, character development, subtext or mysteries and throws it to the wolf to be devoured just to set fire to that pack. It boils everything down to chaotic, mindless carnage with some gothic horror elements thrown in. The whole manga uses complex characters and ideologies as a front to bait you into its grasp, only for you to then realize the charade. The only saving grace for this manga is the fact that despite its shortcomings, it knows exactly what it is, and more importantly, what it wants. Hellsing is as subtle and graceful as a landscape designer using a nuke to dig a hole for a small pond. Anytime Alucard takes the scene, limbs and blood are going to fly through the air like confetti from a peanut store, and you just gave the birthday kid free rein with a bat in each hand. He's a lunatic lusting for chaos, which makes both him and the story unpredictable and intriguing. The pure insanity and unhinged madness on display plays a great contrast to the normal characters, and they tend to give into their darker halves when the situation calls for it, while they seem afraid to let themselves go there. Ceros is also a highlight, and especially her journey to the dark side. She starts out actively resisting her vampiric nature and refuses to drink blood, But as the story progresses, it becomes evident that her resistance will end up endangering her colleagues as well as innocents. This inner conflict, mixed with her getting more confident in her new abilities, makes her one of the best characters in the story. And her action scenes are only getting better and have a stark contrast to the walking tornado of knives and spears that is Alucard. Which leaves the biggest positive aspects of the manga, the fact that it knows what it is. At the end of the day, it's not here to offer a gripping story, great mystery, fascinating characters, or even a well thought out premise. No, it's here to do one thing and do that well. Have fun with chaotic fights. That's it. Every time it needs to set up plot points, it feels like the manga is doing chores and it's not digging it. But as soon as it gets its chance, it will unleash carnage in the most brutal way possible. And you can clearly tell that it is having fun with it. You just feel the madness radiate off the pages and can't help but put a big smile like some lunatic watching a biblical bloodbath being portrayed before you. So when you combine the unapologetic lunacy, great brutal action, gothic horror that makes the vampires, werewolves and other supernatural aspects the fright-inducing entities they deserve to be, with the desire to just have fun with it and not really anything else, then you easily get one hell of a great time. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Just because a story has a lot of shortcomings doesn't mean it's not good. The story is entertaining, but after volume 1 it gets pushed to the background. The art also tends to be goofy, but later that is reserved for the comedic scenes, and the rest of the art is trying to out-hype itself. Most of the characters are paper thin and offers nothing but plot progressions of being fodder for the vampires. The main enemy's plan is lackluster and borderline cartoony and is only an excuse for the over-the-top finale. The ending just exists and has no substance, but it fits this kind of story well. Luckily, the main characters has a lot of intrigue and are complex in their worldview and motivations. Especially Ceres is a standout, but Integra is a badass bitch herself. Alucard makes every scene he's in unpredictable and ensures the manga never goes stale, and it knows exactly what it is and delivers on it wholeheartedly, throwing all ounces of energy at having fun, no matter what form it takes. Which is why I will say Hellsing. You should read it in standard edition. It is a bit too simple and a force too major for me to recommend the deluxe edition rating, but if you have the money, then it's worth upgrading for nothing else and to experience that chaotic third act in this big print format. And sometimes that's reason enough. So Hellsing, have you read it? What do you think about it? And do you agree or disagree with my review? Whatever you think, comment below with me your thoughts. And as always, until I see you in the next video, just remember to stay awesome. See ya.